Hey guys, I wanted to share a quick insight I learned from my HVAC guy, the heating and air guy. I had to have him out to the house today because one of our heat pumps stopped working, and it's getting down into the 30s right now this time of year. So I had some space heaters running, which was fine. I'm thankful that we had those. But so he comes out today, and I explained to him he goes, well, tell me what the problem is. And I said, okay, well, so the heat pump stopped blowing. And I went down, I checked the unit, saw that a fuse was popped or burnt. So I replaced the fuse, had some extra fuses, put a new fuse in, and it instantly popped as well. And so I looked, and there was some corroded wire, and so I cleaned all that out, got that cleaned up, put a new cap on there. Still popped another fuse instantly. So of course I had to call them, spend the money, and that's always the question, right? How much is this going to cost me? The fact that I don't know how to do this, how much is it going to cost me? So he comes out today. He asked me what's going on. So I explained to him exactly all that process I just explained to you. He goes, I think I can fix that. You show me your outside unit. So we go outside. He looks right through the top part where the fan is. And he says, you see that wire right there? That wire right there is touching that metal pipe right there, and it's causing a ground, and the power's not getting to your unit. And so I think I can fix that. He said something about they come from the factory like that. So sure enough, he some electrical tape, tapes up that spot so that the contact isn't grounding out, puts a new fuse in, turns it on right away, fine. Not even a problem with the issue, but the problem with the power supply. And the power supply, not even with the actual unit, but something externally outside, in the yard with the external unit had some wires crossed, so the power wasn't getting where it needed to go. And I just started thinking about that. I'm a preacher, so everything has a teaching illustration in it for me. And I started thinking about that, about how grace is. Grace is God's power in our lives. Yes, it's unmerited favor. Yes, there's God's favor on our lives because He actually likes us. He cares about us. He wants to be in our lives. He's wanting to bless us. He's wanting to work things out in our lives for our benefit because He favors us as He favors a favorite child, all of His children. So, the interesting thing that I felt like the insight is that we get our wires crossed, and there's not really a problem with the power. In other words, with God, there's plenty of power. The supply is there, but something has a wire crossed and the power is diverting off into something else. Now, this is just an illustration, so don't build a theology out of this, but the power gets diverted off. In other words, the power doesn't get where it needs to go. And our hearts are like that. Our heart, God sheds abroad His love in our hearts. His grace is poured into our inner man. And from there, if we get our wires crossed, that grace is not going to get where it needs to go. In other words, that grace, that spiritual influence from God, that transformative power within us is not going to get to where it needs to go. In other words, it's not going to get to that part of our heart that needs to transform and let go of doubt, unbelief, sin, reckless behavior, unwise decisions, whatever that might be. Whatever area of our life that needs to be transformed, it's transformed as we renew our mind. And when we renew our mind, what you're actually doing is opening that doorway to grace to come in and empower you to live in a way that you weren't living before, but in a natural way. Not just where it's like, as long as I have this power, then I can do it, and then when I let go, it goes away. No, there's a change, there's a transformation that happens within you. In fact, within this HVAC unit, there's a fuse put in the way to protect the transformer. So the transformer is actually what does the work within this system, but the fuse would pop because it's a lot cheaper to replace a $5 fuse than a $200-something transformer. So I wonder in our lives how often we've got our signals crossed, whether through sin habits or through just unbelief or unwise decisions that we're making, and we're blocking that power from getting where it needs to go in our own lives and in our minds. And that's why there's so much focus on mind renewal unto transformation. It's one of my favorite subjects to talk about. We are at a place of acceptance before the Father. He's given us everything that pertains unto life and godliness. All His promises are yes and amen. He wants to be a blessing to us so that we will be a blessing to the entire world. But it's up to us to align ourselves with His truth, His wisdom, through mind renewal, through a repentant lifestyle. In other words, changing the way that we think so that it matches how He thinks, so that we can let his power into our inner man to influence and change and lead and transform us, so that we will then live within that newness of life that he's trying to birth through us. So I thought you might appreciate that lesson about grace from the HVAC man.